this is lesson 3, and today's topic is simplify and solve multi-step equations, and this is on page 5. Our goal, I can simplify an equation by using the distributive property and term combining, and then solve. So here are the steps we need to take in order to solve a multi-step equation with variables on one side of the equation. The very first step we're going to take is we're going to use the distributive property. And we do that first in order to release the parentheses. It's almost like think about terms being trapped inside the parentheses. We need to release the terms from the parentheses. Next, number 2, we're going to combine like terms. And we're going to do this to create fewer terms. So we're going to release the parentheses first, then we're going to try to combine any like terms so that we have fewer terms to work with. We'd like our equation to ultimately look like a two-step equation with a term that has a coefficient and a variable, and then another term that has a constant. Next, now we have the solving step. We're going to add, or we're going to subtract and we're going to do this. We're going to add or subtract the constant, actually the opposite of the constant, the number without the variable on both sides. We are using the inverse of whatever operation is given for the constant. Finally, we're going to divide, or we're going to multiply. Again, this is the opposite or the inverse of what's being done by the coefficient of the variable on both sides of the equation. So we have to add and whatever we add and subtract, we do on both sides. Whatever we divide or multiply, we do on both sides. So let's try the next two equations. So as I look at my first equation right away, I see the parentheses. So we're going to eliminate that by taking 5 times x and 5 times positive 2. So 5 times x is 5x. 5 times positive 2 is positive 10. The other terms are not affected because they're not inside the parentheses. So I'm going to drop them down as exactly as I see them. So that would be step 1. Step 2. Next, we're going to gather up or combine like terms. So I see a 5x. And I see a minus or negative 2x. Together, 5x and negative 2x, or 5x minus 2x, would be 3x. And I'm going to gather up the terms that are constants, a positive 10 and a negative 6, or 10 minus 6, and that's positive 4, so I'm going to write that as plus 4. And then I'm going to drop down the constant on the other side. That was step 2. Our third step is to add or subtract the constant. And I base that on what's happening with the constant. It says I'm adding 4, so we're going to do the inverse. We're going to subtract 4 on both sides. And that's going to leave 3x and equals 15. That was step 3. And finally, our last step is to multiply or divide, and that's again based on what we're given. We're going to do the inverse. This is side by side is multiply, so we're going to do the opposite. We're going to divide by 3, and our final answer is x equals 5, and that was our fourth and final step. So let's try the next one together. This is looks a little bit different because they've kind of embedded the distributive property, or they have the parentheses at the end. So just to clarify, we didn't start here because it was at the beginning. We started because we saw parentheses, and that's our first step, to release the parentheses no matter where it is. So if I look at this, it's kind of at the end. However, I can already see an issue Right there, I have a minus sign in front of this 3. So we need to address that. Because 8y is not involved in the distributive property, and minus 5 is also not part of that distributive property, I'm just going to drop them down so that they're there ready to go in order that the equation's given. And then I'm going to use that minus like it's a negative 3. So I'm going to take negative 3 times y, which is going to be negative 3y. I'm going to write it as a minus. Negative 3, again, there's a negative or a minus 4. Negative 3 times negative 4 would be a positive 12. So I'm going to write positive 12. And again, that 37 is just kind of enjoying the ride for a while. That was step 1. So the signs, once again, can be tricky if we're not diligent about them. The next step is to gather up like terms. So I see 8y, and again, I don't have to start with my terms with variables. It just happened to be what my eyes saw first. And negative 3y or minus 3y. So 8y minus 3y would be 5y. Now I'm going to gather up my constants. I have a negative 5 or minus 5 and a positive 12 or plus 12. So I'm going to look at this like negative 5 plus 12, and that would be positive 7. And again, 37 is just hanging out. Now we're ready for our solving steps. So the first 2 steps are simplifying the equation so that we can get down to just 2 terms, a term with a variable and a constant. So now we're ready to solve. We're going to start by eliminating the constant, and we do that by seeing what the equation's doing. It's adding 7, so we do the inverse, which is subtracting 7, and we have to do that on both sides. So we've eliminated it, leaving 5y equals 30. And final step is to eliminate the constant, and we do that once again by deciding what the coefficient, what the coefficient is doing. It's multiplying y, so we're going to do the opposite. We're going to divide by 5 on both sides, eliminating the 5, and our final answer is y equals 6. So now I would like you to try the 4 problems on page 6 following this step-by-step guide. Thank you.